Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Code with Italians. I do not remember how this works. I'm doing things. We're doing things. Hello, welcome
Are we
back.
live? Are we live? Are we live?
I don't know. This is
Are we live?
no wrong microphone. Yes,
Can you hear us?
I
Do
hope
we have
so.
a chat on this thing? Where is the chat?
There is a chat. It's
Okay.
in our heart,
Hi.
or it's the
Okay.
friends we made along the way, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Yes, all clear. Thank you for confirming.
Yeah.
So,
It never
fun
happened.
fact, my primary camera doesn't work. My primary microphone doesn't work, so I'm on the backup microphone on the backup camera, and that's why everything is great.
And that's
Hello.
why. That's how we roll. The backup of the backup,
It's
Sebastiano.
like, despite everything, we're here.
Never defeated. Never defeated. Resourceful people.
Mark is saying we have Darth Seb. Awesome. That's
You see?
because OBS is still on the wrong microphone.
Yeah.
I can change it. It's not a big deal.
In the meantime,
Okay.
welcome,
fixed.
Zach.
Welcome back, Zach.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Just a heads up, there's a dog that will be floating around at various points in the background if you want a good distraction. No, I'm good. I was in Japan for a couple of weeks for Droid Kagi and made a trip out of it. And about 2 weeks on, I think I'm finally over the jet lag. It's-
Legit.
took a while, but yeah, it was it's 13 hours ahead of New York. So
Well-
it just upside down.
At least you don't have to do long haul travel in the next month. Oh wait.
Yeah, London is pretty close though.
Yeah.
Only going to be there for 3 nights or 2 weeks. It depends on if airports are open when I try to come back.
Who knows?
You never
It's gonna
know.
happen.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
I was in the US last week, and it was fun wondering whether the airport would work when I
Yeah,
needed
long-
it.
As long as you're not in Burbank right now. Although that we'll see if they're the only ones still in a few days.
We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, before we start talking about subterranean infrastructure and dependency injection, I think this is usually the time we do the event thing. So
Yes, let's do the. I mean, Ivan can't remember anything.
just
but,
make it
you
up.
know,
It doesn't matter.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for supporting us. In the next few weeks, we will be at conferences, so you can reach out in London or in Turin, and you can grab some stickers from us. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to the Twitch channel. You can also subscribe for free if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, or we have a coffee page, and you can basically pretty much support us in a couple of ways. We also have a merch store if you want to buy a hat or a bandana for your dog.
Are
Pretty
you
much
talking
it.
to Zach specifically now?
Any dog owner in general, any dog, whatever you want.
Wait, you mean I need the bandana for my dog?
Also my dog, but yeah, we also have pillows, and you can get a nice.
Oh, my
pizza
dog
pillow.
loves the pillows.
Yeah, I mean, also Spike loves the dog. I mean, it's his pillow now because it's. I mean, either you wash it 3 times a day or it's the dog's pillow.
Yeah.
So we kind of gave up on the pillow, but yeah, thank you for being with us today. We are back after a very long break. We will have a few episodes to the end of the year. 4 episodes with this one. Yeah, there's another 3.
I don't remember.
So we won't be very busy on your schedule. But yeah, we are aiming for quality.
Yes.
Quality versus quantity.
Yeah. I mean, we could do random streams about random stuff, but let's be honest, we are super busy. We don't have time to do random stuff. So we're going for few streams, but all excellent. And I think we're on a good start today as well.
Zach, now back to the
No pressure.
serious. Back to the serious, more important part. What are we doing today?
I
Today,
swear for a second you were gonna ask about the dog again.
No.
Hey, serious
This
things.
this entire thing
The
is
dog is
actually
there. The dog is there. It's a given now. Right.
this entire episode is just an advertisement for adopting this dog.
Oh yeah, because you are fostering the dog, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so this is, you see, good people.
Yeah.
Good people.
If you are in
We
New York
have-
City,
And
we
you
have
want
a
a
dog for
dog?
you.
She's like
From-
this most of the day. She's great.
She's lovely.
perfect.
Very easy.
From
Yeah.
a
No,
technical point of view, what are we doing today?
Today, we're going to talk about Metro, which is a dependency injection framework that I've been building since, I guess, November of last year. Worked on it a bunch over the winter, open sourced it, I guess, beginning of April or maybe March, sometime in the spring. And yeah, and it's been going really, really well. It's, I don't know if you want me to pause there or you want me to just go straight into what is
Go
it?
for it.
All right.
Go for it.
Yeah,
We-
so
We don't have a plan as usual, so go for it.
yeah. So Metro is a DI framework that takes a ton of inspiration from Dagger, Anvil, Juice, Kotlin Inject. Like, it's not trying to be yet another DI framework that is trying to, like, I don't know, reshape your mental model of how to use these. I think that in the 15, 20 years that we've had sort of modern DI semantics in, at least, like, coming from like a Java historical background, we've ended up in a place where we've kind of figured out good sweet spots and like things that work really well. Not to say that there are things that they are perfect or that there are things that can't be improved, but the big goal with Metro is for it to be familiar, and you can bring your existing DI knowledge and familiarity to it, and you get a lot of benefits out of the box, and hopefully it's a lot easier to use in other ways. So some examples of this are like, coming from Dagger, it uses, it generates factories in all of its. The example does not have a thermosiphon. The canonical example is a little weather app, which is hopefully relatable, unless you live in SF and you just know the weather every single day. But yeah, some examples of where it draws inspiration are like, coming from Dagger, it uses sort of JSR 330 type inject annotations. You have your basics like constructor injection, member injection, and it will generate reusable factories at compile time, so it drops really well into a large modularized code base and scales up really well. From Kotlin Inject, it takes a lot of inspiration of Kotlin Inject was sort of I think probably safe to say, like the first like purely Kotlin first code generating DI framework. I know there are obviously libraries like Coin and Codeine. I actually don't know how to say it.
Codeine?
Yeah,
Codeine,
that came into existence maybe a little bit before, but were more runtime based or service location or using some reflection, I assume. But it was able to leave behind a bunch of sort of limitations of how Dagger works because it was only trying to model Kotlin. So things like putting providers directly in your component interface, or maybe dropping some of the extra fluff around Dagger. It also was very experimental in ways that I think were very useful. Not all of them, I think, panned out, but I think that it was stuff that everyone kind of using Dagger wondered how feasible that would be. Like, Dagger is all about like, you have these like provider types, and Kotlin Inject is like, Kotlin has function types as like a higher order type. Like, you don't need a separate one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was also multi-platform, which obviously with something like Dagger being tied to Java, you cannot do at the moment. Although that is something that they are now working on. And then you have something like Anvil that, you know, in the beginning of time, we had like JSR 330, which was like 4 annotations and like a good luck thumbs up. And then various DI frameworks that have come along the way after that, whether it's, you know, Juice or Dagger, they have sort of built around that, but they've like extended it in their own ways. So you have like these like layers of like the onion to it, where, you know, JSR 330, or now I guess the Jakarta annotations, they have, you know, very basic stuff like inject and provides and qualifier, and that might be, and like a couple of built-ins like and scope. Yeah, and then yeah, Dagger takes all that, but then it adds some of its own stuff, like the notion of modules, or the notion of like app binds, or binds optional of, or Dagger.lazy is you know, something that is unique intrinsic to Dagger. And then Anvil comes along a few years ago, I think 5 years ago now. And it further extends this. It basically says, look, like this scales up really well, but the scaling is only working well at like the code level, and there's a human level above that, which is to say we have people working in large companies that they are writing some feature and they know that this ends up in a certain scope of the app. So like, you know, your app scope, or if you have login, you know, your user scope that is some level below that. And we know that whatever I'm writing ends up there, but I don't want to have to be responsible for doing all the mechanical tedium wiring that up to some component somewhere, especially if you have maybe multiple components, like you know, the production one and then the test one and this and that. And so Anvil basically was like an extension around Dagger that focused on making aggregation features like this much simpler. It also had sort of a separate library within it where it could generate factories as a compiler plugin. And that unlocked a lot of build speed potential because you no longer had to run capped in all of these places. So now, you know, you have 3 layers of this onion. You have JSR 330, you have Dagger, you have Anvil, you have, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 different compiler tool chains that are operating in there as well. You know, you have your regular Kotlin compile, you have to run Dagger, you have capped. Now you have KSP, and if you were running Anvil, up to a certain point, basically K2, you could use Anvil's like native compiler plugins. But when the compiler front end from 1.x went away, there was no path through to replicating what Anvil was doing in K2. Not in a way that would let you run it in capped before Dagger would then run over sources. And so I wrote a fork of Anvil that was a KSP implementation. And, you know, if you want to move up to K2, then maybe you move to that. But you're having to jumble quite a bit. And in like a super, I don't know, pathological case, you could end up with one where like it runs KSP, it runs cap stubgen, it runs capped itself, which is a type of Java compilation. It runs Kotlin compile, and then it runs Java compile on the end because Dagger generates Java files. And if you multiply that across, you know, dozens or hundreds of modules in a code base, that adds up pretty quick. And I think people's 2 biggest pain points when working with Dagger is the build times from having all these extra compilation or tools running, and basically error messaging, because Dagger at the end of the day, it runs as an annotation processor, and its only vehicle for communicating warnings and errors is to fail to build on console output. And that works. We have a whole tooling ecosystem that works that way. Like we're all developers here, and we're not new to running compile and seeing what the command line says. But the best place to tell someone that their code is going to fail to compile is the IDE, because that will fail. That'll show the red line before they have this error. It saves people time. You can also put more information. It's much more contextual because you don't have to guess what column in the line it's talking about, or have to flesh out the message to be super descript. It can just say like, hey, like this return type is not compatible with what you're trying to do here. And so a lot of companies have separately, and Dagger also has some first-party lints, but a lot of people have written custom lints to basically replicate some of what Dagger or Anvil will report as an issue, but show it in the IDE. And so now you also have an entire parallel lint and static analysis toolchain that you're trying to maintain. And basically you get to a point where it's like, if you have a dedicated infrastructure team or a build team or some combination of the two, you can maybe fund this, but chances are you're probably saying like, this is too big of a lift to try to invest a lot of dedicated resources, and stuff that we can take off the shelf from open source, great. But for the most part, we're just going to ask people to, not to pull out a gaming term on Twitch, but to get good with Dagger. And
hashtag skill issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is hard skill issue, my friend.
Yeah, and so it's like all these tools work really, like they set out with very specific and clear goals, and they accomplish them really well. But I think that there's been a general feeling in the community for a long time that we could do better here. I think that a lot of people in particular were wondering, will Dagger go, KMP? Is there going to be a route that lets us, better integrate with native Kotlin projects? And what does that mean for tools like, Anvil or other extensions of Dagger that use sort of various build pipeline hacks to try to integrate in as, that are still ultimately independent tools. And I think that has generally ended up in a space where people were thinking like, compiler plugins we know are very fast. That would be cool. IDE support, like custom lints, would be great because that fails before you even try to run the build. Something that has all of these features combined, so you don't have to stack annotations from different tools or frameworks together. The famous example of this is like with Anvil, you would have component and merge component, and you have to use Anvils, but then know that it's going to swap in the real one later, and it's it's not complicated, but it is more that people have to keep track of. You also have things around like stability of compiler APIs, being able to chase the language, experience with multi-platform if you want a framework like this to work on multi-platform. And all of those things are things that I have over the years come to kind of specialize in. And so I guess I kind of looked at the Venn diagram of all of those and decided that it was me in the middle, and decided to, again, taking lots of inspiration. Like this was not an original idea, but seeing, if I tried to go at this, how far could I get before I hit a wall? And started that in November, and I never really hit a wall. There was definitely, we'll say like soft wall, like plaster walls, but I was helped a bunch by the compiler folks at JetBrains, where because it's not a public API, they're under no real obligation to like heavily document stuff, and so there's many occasions where I was like, hey, I'm kind of working on this, and I'm wondering, like, I see some stuff like this. Is this something that I could do? And then it'd be like, oh, actually, no, there's a tool that does exactly what you want, and it's over here. It's completely undocumented, and it's called this. Here's an example from like Kotlin X serialization. And that happens so many times. And that's just sort of a really nice thing about, I think it's like indicative of like the Kotlin community in general is really nice like that. And yeah, after a month or two of just sort of like, is this anything spinning the wheels? Um, I'll get to PY's question in a second. I was like, okay, this has wheels. And I talked a bunch and pulled in a bunch of people that either worked on various tools like this in the past, so like Jesse Wilson, who worked on Juice and Dagger One. Brought in Eva Tatarka from who authored Kotlin Inject. Ralph Wondrashek. I never know how to say his last name. Sorry, Ralph. Who is the original author of Anvil. Danny Santiago from Google, who is not technically on the Dagger team, but he frequently works on Dagger stuff. And then a few other people that I knew in the community that just had really good senses of sort of API design or how DI should work. And most people do on their winter breaks, I wrote a 30-page design doc and and shared it.
That's totally normal. Yes.
Yeah, it's it was New York in winter 2025, and everybody had norovirus and was stuck at home. So, and it we hashed out a ton of stuff in this design review. It's sort of like a microcosm of just like what makes working in this community really, really nice. And especially also like it's easy to like worry about, am I going to be potentially stepping on people's toes here? Like, are they going to view what I'm doing as somehow like against what they're doing with it? And at no point was anything ever like that. It was really nice that everyone was super supportive of just seeing, what could happen in this space. And so one of the things that came out of the design review, to go to PY's question, was the name. So when I started working on this, the code name I gave it was Lattice, because I was thinking like, what gives something structure, like a lattice structure? And I still stand by my claim that that is a perfectly okay name, and everyone else hated it.
Why?
I don't know. It just people. I mean, there's a couple people from Slack that were advising on it, and Lattice is also the name of a company that it's like a product built on top of Slack for doing performance reviews and feedback. So the Slack people were like, it's like that Lattice. I'm like, no, but no. Everyone else is just like, I think that there should be a better name. And Jesse Wilson, ever the good neighbor of things, was basically like, what are things that sort of like circle around this? So it's like you're in New York. What's something like connects things? And it was like Metro. So I can't claim credit for the name. The name was Jesse Wilson's suggestion. I do think Lattice is fine. If you search around hard enough, you may still find references to Lattice in the code base.
We just have a lattice exception or something.
Yeah. Well, so whenever I never updated my, I renamed the repo, but I never updated my Git remote origin. So every time I work on it, GitHub sends me a message back saying, "Hey, please point at the new repo." So it's still
renaming Git remotes is more painful than it needs to be.
Yeah, but anyways, that's the not so short, long story short. I guess I should say a bit more about what Metro actually is now. So it's a DI framework that runs at compile time to generate all of this wiring for you. It's implemented as a compiler plugin. So it does not work on Java. Although, fun fact, I learned from the JetBrains people that checkers in FIR do run on Java, because they wanted some things to be able to tell you like, hey, so think if you try to call like an internal function from Java, they wanted some stuff to be able to work there. So
I think
that
you
was one
might
thing.
have to explain what FIR is.
Okay, yeah, I'll get to that. But yeah, so at a high level, it's implemented as a compiler plugin. It is very fast. That was one of the goals, obviously. Now there's benchmarks for it. There's a dedicated page on the site as well if you want to read about it. But getting that link while I talk. But that is like probably the single biggest appeal. Where is the? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It depends on the size of your code base and what benchmark you're measuring, but it's in general like anywhere from like I don't know 40 to 50% faster on average for like an ABI breaking change. ABI breaking meaning like you change some like public signature that causes recompilations. In scenarios where compilation avoidance kicks in, everyone is fast because everyone's pretty good at compilation avoidance these days. But yeah, that is the big appeal of using the compiler plugin there.
So it's
other benefit.
When you need to do the work, you're faster at doing the work.
Exactly. You can do that, that iterative loop much, much faster because your builds are much faster. So even if you are stuck on, it's not to say that Metro is not free from, confusing DI, if you're really stuck in the weeds and I'm like, I don't know where this missing binding is, or I don't know why this isn't working, like you can at least trial and error that much faster. It has a runtime that is very similar to Dagger's, so it's very light. It has, a handful of annotations. It has a couple of runtime types, like its own provider. It's multi-platform as well. It uses the standard libraries lazy type for lazies, since there's one off the shelf that we can use. It should feel very similar to working in particularly Dagger and Anvil, with some inspiration on like the user-facing API pulled from Kotlin Inject. So you can write providers and binds directly in your dependency graph interface. You can put inject or the add inject annotation directly on the class rather than having to silo it out to a specific primary constructor. Little things like that just make it a little bit easier to write in. I did try to pick better names in places. Like I didn't want to like make change just for the sake of change, but I did feel strongly that these should be called dependency graphs and not components. Like component does come from a like graph theory terminology, but I think that the average developer working in this doesn't know that. So that's why you also see it pop up in Gradle. And it's so instead of at component or calling these things components, the annotation is at dependency graph, and these are just called graphs. So you have like your app graph or logged in graph, user graph, what have you. And instead of subcomponents, which I strongly feel are a misnomer because they are a super component by definition, it's everything that inherits plus like it's an extension, and so in Metro they're called graph extensions. Other stuff about it, being a compiler plugin, because the way that the K2 compiler plugin works for diagnostics, the vast majority of errors will, if you have IDE support enabled, will actually show up right in the IDE, which is great. So you don't have to write this like parallel lint infrastructure. You still have to write these checks, kind of like a lint check, like, which it helps if you've written lints before to work in this, because you have to face scenarios where like is there no return type, or has the user just not written it yet? Yeah, stuff like that. Everything is nullable, that kind of scenario. Other stuff that's worth. Oh, and it has a really, really strong interop story. It doesn't live in a vacuum. It doesn't pretend like it's the only DI framework in the world. It
Why
very much
not?
acknowledges that. Very much acknowledges that most people looking at this are probably already using something like Dagger or Kotlin Inject, or even Juice, and it says like it would be really annoying if you had to migrate everything over. Looking again at PY in the chat, like I remember him and J Rod's talks about the huge move to get from Dagger 1 to Dagger 2 and having to have like parallel sets of annotations and all this. And with Metro, all of its annotations that it looks at are configurable. So you can use Metro's first party ones. You can also bring whichever annotations you want. So if you want to, tell it to continue using, Jakarta or JavaX inject, you can tell it to do that. If you want to use Kotlin injects, you can tell it to use those. And more importantly, in its like Gradle DSL, there's like an interop block, and you can tell it to just like include Dagger interop or include Anvil interop or include Kotlin inject interop. And it's it's a one-ish liner depending on how terse your formatter is, and that makes it super easy to drop into an existing code base and limit the work that you have to do to just being the few places where you do have to make some API changes. So instead of a like Dagger app component that you call to create it, you instead would have a create graph that's typed to app graph. And that has been really helpful for folks doing adoption. I've had some people share, I won't name companies since I didn't ask them before, but I've had people at decent, we'll say companies you've heard of, report back and be like, yeah, I was able to knock it down in a couple days, or we just made the switch over this week and we'll enable it fully in a couple weeks. So they're even able to do this like simultaneous support for an extended period to test things out. Yeah,
that's really good.
High level.
That's really good, because I imagine like large migrations just would not happen otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And now there's I think I can say this one at least, but like the biggest active migration I know of right now is actually Square themselves, and they have, I don't think deprecated is the right, Anvil is in maintenance mode, so they are still going to as needed cut bug fixes for Anvil running on Kotlin 1.x, but it is otherwise in maintenance mode and not getting active new development, and they are moving to Metro. So that's been pretty exciting to see. It's.
I mean,
it's not a lot of fun.
I think it like the minimum thing it says is that there are big, well-renowned engineering orgs that think you're doing a good job there.
Yeah, one bit of one question that comes up often that I feel like is worth touching on is concerns around it being a like solo maintainer project, which I think is fair. At the same time, I do think that the forest through the trees on that is that's like 98% of open source projects. I think that comparison point particularly comes up because of Dagger's long history of being well maintained by the core library or the Java core libraries team at Google. And I think that has been a luxury that the community has been able to enjoy, but is not actually the norm. Even projects that are, attached to a company, if you go look at the contributors list, it's usually just like one person who is doing most of it. So I get the concern. I also think that is how open source tends to work. And I also wouldn't say that I work alone. Like I said, 30-page design doc. I had like 10 different people advising on it. I have a couple channels with people where I'm kind of constantly getting feedback. There are people sending a lot of contributions. In particular, folks over at BandLab and Square have sent a bunch. And so, yeah, I have no shortage of people that I can ask for help when I need it. And so far, it seems to be, working. And my hope is that, eventually it gets to a point where it is not like in maintenance mode, but the point where it's like 1.0 and it feels sort of like done enough that it's also not a super high maintenance burden. Again, benefiting from the fact that a lot of the trial and error of like what's the right shape of a DI framework has been trotted out for a decade.
Yeah.
So,
and out of curiosity, how far do you think it is the done phase, at least feature wise? Like what are, or I guess I could rephrase it, what are the big things that you still want to do?
Yeah, I think that it's not at complete 100% feature parity with Dagger or Anvil or Kotlin Inject by design. There are features of some of them that Metro intentionally doesn't support. So, for example, Anvil has some extra features like ignore qualifier or rank that are not in Metro's first-party API. But although those are maybe poor examples, because if you use Anvil's versions, Metro does support it. I just didn't want to put it in Metro's first-party API because they're really niche use cases. And I didn't even implement it. The Square people contributed it. So, there's some stuff like, Dagger has a notion of single check that I don't plan on supporting in Metro. Dagger's former longtime maintainer, Ron Shapiro, also didn't advise against using it, but basically it was like, you shouldn't use this unless you benchmarked it a ton that proves otherwise. And I am perfectly kind of fine with just saying like, yeah, I'm happy to revisit it if someone comes at this with benchmarks and data that show it. I would say that of all the features that I want to support from like a parity front, I think that we're basically there. There's some more exotic stuff that particularly taking inspiration from Juice that are going to be possible that I want to do particularly for test support. And I'll get to that in a sec, but I would say that, if nothing else, based on the companies and organizations that have been migrating to it, it seems like we're basically there on sort of like 98% of the use cases. The features that I want to implement next are more around interesting things that we can do because we're a compiler plugin, and building out improved support for multi-platform. So one example of this is another idea from Jesse, is in Juice, you can give it a bunch of different modules at runtime. There's like some sort of like var arg input, and then it will just go and like grab all the bindings from there and then put together, and then it produces a graph at the end that it feels is valid. And that's really powerful in tests because you can pull, all your real modules here, and then you can pull in some fake ones, and then you can splice them together and go, and you don't have to have this sort of like statically defined set of inputs that can be really quite rigid. Dagger 1 had a nice...
So that would be, for example, if you want to replace a part of the graph with the test implementations, because you know that the subject under test is only going to interact with those, and then the rest you don't care, or is that...
Right.
Yeah, or you have like multiple overlays where you have a test that changes some part of it and another test that changes some other part.
Yeah, it's basically think like uh, module overrides from like Dagger 1. Same use case anyway. Juice implements it differently, but Dagger 1 is clearly kind of drawing from that same goal. And that is obviously much harder in Dagger 2. And while I'm generally not someone that in my own work experience writes a lot of like unit tests that are building whole dependency graphs, I do know that it's a much bigger thing on server development. Particularly if you go look around at like Cash App's MISC framework, you see Juice using this pattern all over there. And so a big reason why an annotation processor cannot do this is because you have to have everything be visible statically at compile time. And the things you have visibility into are usually sort of, signatures, symbols, and, annotations. And so that's why you have to, declare, component dependencies in an annotation, or you have to declare all of your included modules up front and things of that sort. And whereas Juice would have, like one function and you just have like a variable number of modules that you take as an input. That works at runtime and reflection. If you're an annotation processor, you can't look at method or like function expression bodies. In a compiler plugin, we can. So
Right.
So what I want to do is add support for basically doing the same thing, where you can have like an overload for creating a graph where you are taking a real graph that is otherwise valid on its own, and then you are giving it n number of input, what we call in Metro binding containers, but that's functionally the same thing as what a module is in Dagger. Just again, I wanted a different name. And the compiler plugin will be able to, will confine or constrain the API well enough. So like it has to be clear that this is a binding container. It has to be able to go and like look at stuff statically, but it will look at all of those and be able to see like these are all my arguments into this, and I'm gonna now take those modules and overlay them onto the graph that I'm already building for the target graph. And that will allow you to bring basically this like overriding behavior back. And it will just create like a custom ad hoc graph just local to that test. And one idea that we had that would be the real sweet spot in this is like, could we get to a point where you could annotate your test suite with @inject and have Metro just inject that? So like you don't even have a graph. Yeah, like you don't even have a graph with a name. You just say like create dynamic graph dot inject this, and then we can string together all the necessary context for that to generate what we need. Yeah, that's a big one that I have on deck. There's some sort of quality of life changes that we can make as sort of like a single framework. So for example, if you're using Dagger with Anvil, you end up stacking a lot of annotations because you're like, I need the @inject annotation, I need contributes binding, I need the single in annotation. And now that we're just one framework, there's some opportunities there, I think, to slim that down. At the very least, one that I'm eyeing is like, if you contributes binding something, then we should be able to infer that the thing you're annotating is also asking to be constructor injected.
Yeah.
So that's one area. Multi-platform support, like it works on multi-platform projects today. The big asterisk in there is that those aggregation features that I was talking about, like what it borrows from Anvil, that only works within the same compilation. It does not work on non-JVM projects. It does not work across different compilations, and that's due to Bug. I want to say it's a bug because it does crash, but it's there's a bunch of places in the compiler where like Metro is running into issues, not because they're really bugs in the compiler, but just because Metro is the first compiler plugin to try to do it. And the compiler team at JetBrains has been really receptive to all these and have been continuing to like work on and refine these cases to make it easier to do. So right now there's an issue where the way that Metro propagates this information is similar to how Anvil does, where it generates these sort of hint declarations that are in like one global known package called like metro.hints. And so whenever you generate them, you are generating a new file. And for some reason in the compiler, if so say you have like 10 source files coming in, and one of those files generates like a contribution of some sort for upstream. We will then generate an 11th file for that hints file, and the compiler on the other side of it, when it pops out of the pipeline, looks at the output number of files, and if that doesn't match the input number of files, it panics and crashes. And so it's something that they are working on. They've made some initial headway in the upcoming 2.3.0 release, but it looks like the full multi-platform support for that is probably not going to be there quite yet, because they have to make it also work with incremental compilation. So they're starting with the JVM and then going from there.
I'm kind of surprised though, because I know that Compose does generate additional files, the Compose compiler. But I don't know. I have no idea how that stuff works.
I don't know if it does actually.
I mean, it generates a composable singletons class that is internal, and I think I don't know, maybe it doesn't go through an intermediate file though. That might be.
Yeah, because usually the way the compiler plugins work is, again, because they can do this as a plugin, they just modify the IR, the intermediate representation in the compiler directly. So, with Dagger, another or any annotation processor, another limitation you run into is, if you do like member injection, they always have to be, at least internal or protected.
Yes, they have to be visible. Yeah.
Right, and with with Metro being a compiler plugin, they can actually be private because it doesn't generate it as a sibling class. It actually adds it as a nested class directly, and nested classes can access privates of their parent. I heard it. Never mind. Okay, so it's and so usually compiler plugins go by this pattern, and it's actually not until Kotlin 2.3 where they've started adding concrete APIs to. I mean, they had some APIs before, but now they're doing them in a way that will be compatible with incremental compilation, and then eventually with non-JVM multi-platform compilations. Because in order for IC to work, it needs to know what file you're generating it into. And up to this point, if you generated a top-level function or class somewhere, it would go into this like magic file that was not tracked by the compiler at all. Yeah, so I'm not entirely familiar with what Compose singletons are, but I would bet that they are generating into an existing file rather than a new dedicated.
Yeah. It's probably just like a package private class or something.
Yeah, it can also be a top level class in the same file. I think the reason why the reason why Metro in particular runs into this is because these hints have to go specifically into this metro.hints package. Yeah. What else do y'all want to know? Or I can show you some stuff.
Yeah, if we have time.
Yeah, we have half an hour. So
how do you? Okay, fantastic. So, can you show me a setup, like an initial setup, because I want to understand for. So Metro, who's for today? Like I'm starting a greenfield because I understand that they are incrementally adopting it. So if you are an existing app, you can kind of use it. But will you advise to use it in a greenfield app that goes to production? Is it ready, or the solo maintainer? Even if you are not solo, because I checked, it's like 20 people that contributed so far. So I expect. So will you advise also to start with Metro if I'm starting like a new Android app today and I'm alone? Let's say it's a pet project, so it's gonna be like a indie project. So I want to make some money, so I'm committed, but it's just me over the weekend.
Yeah, I think that it's perfectly fine and ready for that. The only case where I would say that you might want to hold off, or at least have the caveats in mind, is if you were starting a project that out the gate is going to be multi-module and multi-platform, because of that limitation with aggregation features in non-JVM projects. But there are people I know that are using it, and they are just doing the manual wiring because they still want all the bill benefits that they get separately. So, it's a trade-off that you have to consider. But yeah, I think it's definitely production ready. The only thing that is unstable about it is just there's a few things that I want to change with the API with some of the dynamic graph stuff that I was talking about. But a bunch of companies have moved to it and have been shipping it in production for quite a while. So for a new project, it's definitely fine. For an existing project, especially if you can lean on interop, it should also be fine. There is on the website, here we go. There's an adoption strategies. I lost my tab. There we go. There's an adoption strategies section that also covers, like, if you're coming fresh into it, if you're coming from Dagger, if you're coming from Kotlin Inject, if you're using Anvil, like different things to keep in mind and approaches you can take. Yeah, so jumping into a greenfield project. So the Field Spotter project that you have open here is great. It's a multi-platform project, but it is quite simple. And one thing that you're going to want to do real quick here.
Yep.
Do you know about the bundled IDE plugins registry?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Disable.
Yeah, and
Disable
then I
this
think
one.
you'll have to Yeah, and I think you'll have to restart.
Okay. I'll do that. 1 second. I'm gonna unshare the screen from the public. Just because I have my personal email here underneath the ID. Maybe I should close this. There you go.
Yeah. So the reason that we do this is so the way the IDE plugins work in the IDE actually depends. So if you're a first-party plugin, you get bundled in directly with the Kotlin plugin, and so everything works out of the box all the time for free, and it's great.
I think you have to add that Compose compiler is considered first party.
Correct. Yeah. And so they don't load it from your dependencies. They don't try to match the version that's in your dependencies. They run the version that is bundled in the Kotlin plugin that runs in your IDE.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you know what version of the Kotlin compiler is running in your IDE?
This 253, so 230 something, I guess.
Yeah. Do you know which tag? It's
this. Which one?
Yes. Although that's different than the number I was expecting. I guess it just came out yesterday. Yeah. So the point of this being that the Kotlin IntelliJ plugin just takes basically cuts straight from head of the Kotlin compiler. It doesn't align to like a Maven Central Kotlin release, and because the compiler APIs are unstable, they may change. And so because of that, they disable third-party compiler plugins by default in the IDE, so that users aren't getting bludgeoned with a bunch of errors. But you can enable them with this registry, and I just did a recent release of Metro a couple days ago that has better simultaneous support. So, but that was on one that was like 2/1000ths of a dev version release difference. So we'll see how this goes. So the simple setup is, can I click and point at stuff, or is this just
no?
Okay.
It's just a screen share.
So
you can
the
point
simple
me to things.
Yeah. So the simple setup is you just apply the Metro Gradle plugin on line 24. And for most cases, that's all you got to do. So all Kotlin compiler plugins have like a companion Gradle plugin that does all the wiring. That's what also gets you a nice like DSL for enabling or configuring behaviors about the compiler plugin. Metro does the same. You'll also now, if you want to do extra configuration, there will be a Metro plugin extension in your build file. But
which I guess you don't have here.
I don't think so.
Oh, by the way, I had to comment out the iOS stuff because I'm on Windows on this machine. It would not sync otherwise.
Oh, you're one of those people.
It's just a gaming machine, which is now the streaming machine because I game on the PS5. But hey, at least it still has a use.
Yeah. So actually, we are going to enable one feature in this just because I'm proud of it and want to show it off.
Oh, nice.
So if you create a new Metro block.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And the thing to enable, it's going to be two of them. So generate assisted factories.
Yep.
Set that to true. And enable top-level function injection.
Well, that sounds very useful for Compose.
Yeah, so this is another one that took a lot of inspiration from Kotlin Inject. So if you go ahead and resync. What an incredible progress bar.
It's theming appropriate for the stream.
Well,
there's a plugin for that.
You can install the plugin. I got a notification yesterday because we are also running on the latest IntelliJ. So we are.
I mean, we haven't written a line of code since forever.
No, because it's not necessary.
I mean,
the plugin is still compatible with the latest version.
Look at that. Magnificent.
Whee!
Wow.
And there is an episode for that.
Yes.
So if we want to learn how to do those things, there is an episode.
Nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over to your sources, and let's just create a new like example Kotlin file.
Should just in here? Anywhere?
Yeah, just stick it in common main.
Okay. And let's create a new Compose file. Call it Ivan, because why not? Actually, I don't want the class. Okay, ready.
All right, so let's start off with just a very simple like example class.
Okay, so I mean, I'll do what the machine suggests.
Yeah.
Does it need a constructor? Does it need properties?
Yeah, we're gonna iterate through this. So
okay.
Let's call it something different than Ivan. Just the metaphor is gonna get hard. I don't know how to.
I mean, just use inject pizza. It's gonna work.
Okay, all right, that works. So let's create a pizza class. as well.
The fact that the machine is not suggesting you the name pizza, I mean, it's AI is not working, but
Yeah.
it's suggesting topping. That was that was appropriate.
And let's actually make pizza not a data class. I want to actually inject this too.
Yep.
All right, so now let's stick @inject annotations on both of these. So you can just put it right on the class. And then let's also create our graph. So let's do @dependency graph. Yeah, and then interface app graph. And,
yeah, 1 second.
yeah.
They're asking for bigger everything. So I'm gonna bigger again. Okay. So
Yeah,
you were
and
saying?
And then what I was suggesting, actually, we can take. Just
Oh,
call
okay.
it. Is it Ivan or Ivan? Or Ivan?
Even.
Ivan,
Oh, this
okay.
is the new thing. I like the new thing.
Yeah, so there's already some interesting things happening here. So it's not very descriptive, but this companion object is being generated by Metro. And the reason for this is so let's create like a main function just so we have something to tinker with.
Sorry, you were saying I thought I closed Telegram, but I did not.
Let's create a main function.
Oh, yes.
So the way that we create an instance of a graph in Metro is because you don't have like a generated source to point at, there's instead a function called create graph. And that is a compiler intrinsic. It has no implementation, just the compiler comes in and replaces that call at compile time.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll do create graph. And then you give it the type of the graph. So in this case, even graph. And this returns an instance of even graph. Yep. Now, this companion object here is neat because you could also actually skip the create graph call if you wanted to, and just call even graph with an invoke.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, maybe.
I mean,
No.
I think
All
it's
right,
just a
never mind.
bit confused, but
Yeah, that one was a stretch. I haven't tested that in a minute. Okay, we'll delete that one.
it's the nature of the Kotlin compiler's plugins.
Yeah. All right, we'll delete that line and pretend this never happened.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now we have our graph, and now I want to show some of the other IDE features. So let's inject pizza into Ivan.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, so now we're going to, if we try to build this, we're going to have failures because we're missing a name and is vegan. So we could add, provides or whatnot, but to demonstrate another IDE feature, let's actually make this use assisted injection for those. So the annotation is similar to daggers. It's just @assisted inject.
Does it go instead of inject?
Instead of, correct.
Okay.
Oh, no, just on the pizza though.
Oh, sorry.
All right, and look at what we got here.
That's cool.
So everyone always has to write these assisted factories. But, and actually there's a bug here. It's oh, right, no, never mind. There is no bug. So yeah, everyone always has to write these assisted factories every time, but it is something that we could ostensibly, if we, for the simple case, look at the injected constructor and be like, I know what needs to be in this factory. And so if you don't define one yourself in the class, Metro will actually generate this one for you.
I see.
And
I see.
with IDE support enabled, you can actually even reference this directly. So let's mark name and is vegan as both assisted parameters. Now, the last time I tried this crashed the IDE, so we'll... Oh, no, sorry, it's just called @assisted.
Oh, sorry, I haven't studied.
Yep, so they both pop up there. It's nice because the IDE is like updating these in real time.
It's nice because it's not crashing.
Yeah, that too. So now you'll see pizza now has a red underline under it. And if you hover over that, it'll tell you like, hey, this is an assisted injected type. And you're trying to inject this type directly. And I think what you want, and it gives you this little hint here, I think what you want is this factory type instead. So let's go ahead. Yeah. So let's go ahead and change that type to the factory. Yeah. So, and now in your, it maybe create like a field or something in the even class that creates the pizza. Oh, yeah.
It's a default false.
Oh, right, I need to create it. Is it create? Yeah, it's create.
Yeah, so the IDE is having a real meltdown here, but this should all work.
Yay!
There we go. And so this is all very new, and as you're seeing, the IDE is having some hiccups with it still, but this is just a very fun demo of what this sort of like first-party IDE support can really like do when it's cooking.
But this is cool. I mean, this is actually, I mean, it's live editing the file that you are typing in.
That's the magic of compiler plugins, right?
Yeah, it's really neat stuff. The other one that we enabled that I can show you as well is top level function injection. And
yes,
this is
please.
this is particularly targeted at composable situations. So let's create a top level function that's composable and call it, even app. And we'll make that take an even instance. So the way that you would kind of want to do this, so the idea is like, you want to have this top level injection, but you do need to still have it be accessible somewhere. And so the pattern that I've seen most and what I use is now that you have this type, what Metro is going to do is if you annotate this with @inject, it's going to generate a class called even app class. Unfortunately, cannot call the class even app. That gives the compiler a headache for some reason. But it generates something called even app class. And now if you expose that in your even graph, so try to type like, make a new accessor for like even app class, or just call it even app. Yeah, you see it auto-completing. So the IDE does know about it now. Exactly. You're getting some AI spam.
Yeah.
So now we can actually use this. So say in our main function, I guess let's annotate @main to be composable so that
they're not AI. They're asking about AI. Also, no, sorry. I do not have any. Maybe someone in the chat does. But thank you for confirming you're not AI. Happy not to have AI on the stream.
I don't know. If I asked ChatGPT to pretend it wasn't an AI bot, what would it
That's
say?
what it says.
Yeah, so let's annotate the main function with @composable just so that everything links up nicely in the IDE. and maybe I guess call it something else. All right, so now we've got our graph. Normally we would remember it in an instance or something, but now you can actually invoke that even app from the graph directly. So you can call graph.evenapp invoke, and this just works because so you can't see any sources, obviously, but
so you can inject composables as well as. So, I mean, you can inject composable functions on top of injected parameters into the composable functions.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And it will propagate that at composable annotation to, so it generates this even app class, and then that has an operator fun invoke function in it, and then it propagates that at composable annotation to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually another fun sort of under the hood bit. Compose compiler also has to run over this, and the way that it works is like you end up having like a chicken and egg problem, or not chicken and egg, an ordering problem, because you don't actually know if Metro's compiler plugin or Compose's compiler plugin are running first.
Mm-hmm.
And so Metro supports both. It will look and see during transformation, because it will generate a header for this class in the front end of the compiler, and then it will implement it in the back end. And in the back end, it will look and check, like, so Compose, it will transform it and add some extra parameters to it. And it will look and be like, are those parameters there? And if they are, then it's like, all right, Compose compiler's already run. We're dandy. And if they're not there, then it will assume that the Compose compiler has yet to run. Ooh, my memory's getting fuzzy on this. But it will generate a matching signature the same way the Compose compiler would, so that it will work in Compose code.
So inject the composer at the end of the parameters list.
Yeah. And sometimes also the dirty flag?
Yeah.
And then it will also do this for suspend functions. And then a regular function, doesn't have to do anything extra. One other fun thing to show on this, you can also add assisted parameters to this. So if you go to the function, you can add a at assisted, message string. And you'll see it's already picked it up on line 27, and you can just pass that along. So this is these are two really fun sort of IDE visible features. You've also seen sort of this real-time diagnostics kicking in. Some of them being Kotlin compiler built-in stuff, like you're missing this parameter, but some also being like that, hey, like you're injecting an assisted injected type, I think you want its factory. If you go back up to the Evan class, if you now annotate the constructor explicitly with add inject, but then leave the add inject annotation on the class, this is a nonsensical case that I don't think people are going to write that often, but it'll tell you like, hey, you don't need to have two. And there's like 100 or so different diagnostic checks like this to try to sort of be guardrails to bounce you in the right direction.
So it's trying to be upfront about the things that people might get wrong, so they don't have to suffer through like 100 lines stack trace into the bowels of the compiler plugin and the compiler itself. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's another thing that actually just went out this week is so it used to fail fast on graph validation issues, which is nice because it just shows one. But if you're working through a bunch of them, that's annoying because then you have to rerun each time. So now it will report all of them up to 25, and you can configure that number in the Gradle plugin DSL. So if you want it to fail fast, you can set it to 1, and if you want it to be 500, you can do that too.
So you put it to like max value when you're trying to figure out what's wrong, and then you set it back to 1 for normal cases. So if it fails, you know it immediately.
Yeah, I think you probably want to keep it at that like 25
Okay.
because there can be cases also where like you have one failure, but it's like a side effect of like the real failure.
I see.
Yeah, so I think I picked 25 as sort of like I don't know, this seems fine.
It's a number.
Yeah, I was thinking like if the average compiler trace is like 25 or not 20, sorry, if the average compiler failure is like 4 lines or something, and you have 25 failures, and like 100 lines feels still like eminently grokkable if you really want to work through it. Actually, compiler failures are a good thing worth looking at. So let's do this. Let's in event graph. Let's do like a classic duplicate binding case. So let's provide a string twice or an int twice.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
And you need to annotate these with @provides. So now you also see it telling you like, hey, like if you're providing this, it's going to say that like, you need to have a body for it. I think you have to have the get. Yeah. So I also just noticed a bug in Metro during that. It returns early when reporting the missing bodies.
Happy to help.
Yeah. So
why do I always break shit?
That's what we do. That's what we do. But now you have a very nice reference, so you can clip this, and now you have a bug report.
Exactly.
You don't need the repro, right? Because there is already here.
Right. So when you look at this, it's obviously like people who are familiar with DI frameworks like can look at this and be like, I see where that's going to be a problem. But you'll notice it doesn't show you a validation error in the graph, and that's because all the validation that runs on graphs runs in the compiler backend. And that's for multiple reasons. In the backend, we have a much fuller picture and all the available information. I also kind of was wearing my like IDE lints experience hat and just being like, you don't want to like really hammer what the IDE is already trying to do in its IntelliSense or whatever.
Yeah.
So graph validation still runs in the backend. There may also be contributions that are coming in or this and that, and so it made sense to put it there. But now if you try to go to the command line and compile this.
Can you just do, oh, well, I guess I'll just, and just go create graph, I guess.
Is that going to work if it's in common main?
Yeah, works on JVM. Keep it.
Okay. So this should fail to compile with a duplicate binding. If it doesn't, then I'll have another much more serious bug. But this should be like
it's what type expect. Shut up. You have just crashed. It's fine. Yes. Okay. Compilation error.
Ta-da!
Oh, look, an actual error message that a human can understand.
Yeah, so telling you they found multiple bindings for it, and it does some like kind of linty type underlining.
Mm-hmm. The
And
squiggly line.
yeah, and then if you click that link, so I think normally it would just jump to that automatically. Like if you're doing like a regular build and you have an error, it will jump to that specific line like other Kotlin compilation failures do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's doing something different because it's running a main function or something.
It might also be a bug in the IDE or the Kotlin plugin.
Yeah, but
It's in
so,
EAP, so it's possible.
yeah, so for most failures like this, it will jump directly to like the problem point.
Mm-hmm.
So another
But even
example might be
going to
like,
the graph is probably good enough.
exactly, yeah. Like in this case, because you have multiple failure points, I probably just have it set to link the graph until you just start there. But like, say, you know, let's comment out one of these strings and or let's comment out both of them and then just try to expose a string as an accessor. So we'll get like a missing binding exception.
Okay, so where do I?
Let's just add an accessor for a string in this graph.
Okay.
Yeah, so now if you try to build, you should get a missing binding and it should jump straight to that line.
Nope, but this one does.
Yeah, okay. So if you're doing like the regular IDE flow where it does jump to source locations for failures, it'll jump to it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird that it doesn't, because like normally they also show up in that like left gutter, right? Like you'll have like a list of different ones. This is almost like it's just, oh, it's because it's shelling out that Gradle command. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe it's because
Okay.
it's running from common main and it's slightly confused about life and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but in any case, you see like it jumps directly to that line, and with like the native IDE integration with
Mm-hmm.
compiler failures, it will do that jumping automatically. Yeah, that's sort of like a high level overview of some of the basic stuff. There's obviously
really
a bunch
cool.
of advanced features, but I don't know if we have
Do
time.
you know if it's possible at any time to get Metro like certified as a compiler plugin that can run without needing to be explicitly allowed?
There's not currently anything like that other than getting upstreamed.
Okay, too bad.
Yeah. They do want to make it easier. If you watch Brian Norman's talk at from Kotlin Conf, he talks about this, I think towards the end, where basically it's like they, in particular, the diagnostics APIs, they really want to make more accessible because
I see.
that's obviously super valuable. But there's not currently a time frame for that. That said, if you hang out, if you're working on a compiler plugin yourself, if you hang out in the compiler channel of the Kotlin Lang Slack, they're very active and very helpful in there. If you're a user trying to use IDE features of third-party plugins, I would say that basically, unless the plugin specifically says we are actively trying to make sure IDE support works, I would assume that it's like your mileage is going to vary tremendously because there's breaking API changes so often. The way that I had this working in Metro is that I started doing this sort of like compatibility layer where any API that breaks, I'll pull that out into this like compat interface that works across all of them, and then you call it, and then it is implemented in different modules that will call out to the real one. So like there's no reflection happening at runtime. Some compiler plugins work around this with reflection. But this is a pattern that I have used in the past for like different AGP versions in a Gradle plugin, and it's scaled fairly well. And that will basically, there's a way to ask the Kotlin compiler at runtime what version tag it was built against. There's like an artifact of packages and resources, and it will look at that and then try to go fish out the most appropriate compat instance, and then that gets plumbed down everywhere and uses that. And that's why this is working safely in the IDE, and the most recent release of Metro yesterday supports both Kotlin 2.2.2 and also the new 2.3 beta. And it on CI, it will also run all of its tests against all of the versions that I have compat libraries for. And like I'm doing that because like I really want this to work, but not every compiler plugin maintainer is doing that. And so if you want to use these IDE features, if they're not doing that, then you're probably going to have more headaches with it. It's not their fault or anything. It is a bunch of extra work, and it may not be worth it, especially if they don't, have a lot of checks, or they only have, one or two that are very, easy or simple to fix otherwise. Metro basically uses every single extension in the compiler plugin APIs. So I kind of want that extra test surface area, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could always ask JetBrains to take in the Metro compiler plugin, but then you have to work in their repo instead of yours.
Yeah, I was going to say that you're saying that to someone who's currently fun employed, and that sounds like a job. That's the high level stuff. Obviously, there's a bunch of more advanced features. Again, if you're familiar with Dagger, Kotlin Inject, etc. It has multi-bindings. It has binding containers are its version of Dagger modules. It has Anvil's basic aggregation features like contributes binding. Actually, that's one more fun thing that we can show while we're looking at IDE support.
Yes.
If you go to your event graph, so in Anvil, if you wanted to merge contributions in, you would have to annotate it with like @merge component, and it's a separate annotation. In Metro, because it's all unified, the dependency graph annotation just takes a scope argument, and your AI autocomplete already knows about it. So yeah, go ahead and take app scope. This comes in built into Metro because it's one that most people I think will use. So now this will merge all contributions to app scope. So if we go create an interface, called like Pizza Thoughts, and then annotate this with @contributes to app scope.
I think that might have died briefly. Come on, AI, I was counting on you. Okay, yeah.
Boom.
I think the AI completion doesn't work when the entire Kotlin compiler is confused about what's going on.
Yeah, but so you see on Even Graph, there is now a super type generated here. The name is not super helpful in this case. This is sort of like a, you're seeing a glimpse of what Metro is generating under the hood. But what that does mean is that if you go back to line 33 on your main function, and then create or cast it to Pizza Thoughts. So it should.
It doesn't complain.
Aw. Well. Oh well.
Do I need to add some? I don't think it's gonna make a difference, but
Yeah.
should.
If you try to call .hello on the returned, so you should be able to remove that cast, and it should just work.
Yep.
Yeah. There we go.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's another neat feature that you get with IDE support. I've thought about maybe changing the name so that they're more descriptive. The thing is, we have to generate these nested things because contributes to is repeatable, and so we need to like disambiguate them from whatever scope.
Oh, I see. Oh, because they can repeat, but they have to have unique scope parameters.
Right.
I see.
But yeah, other Anvil features work too. Like you can do replacements from contributions, or you can do exclusions from graphs. What else do you want to know? What am I missing?
I mean, I think like I'm already excited about that as it is. Like I've had a big item in my to-do list for a while to play around with Metro and see if I can make it work in IntelliJ platform, because there is no DI really. I mean, there is some basic form of DI, but there isn't really DI. And especially now, as we are writing Compose UI in the IntelliJ platform and in Studio, we really need something like this. You start having like passing down stuff, 15 layers, and obviously people have the instinct to create composition locals and like, no, please don't do that. Please pass a parameter. And so if there is a way to directly inject the parameters in the top level functions, then yeah, that works great, and we can do that, and we can save ourselves a bunch of pain.
That sounds like a job, Sebastian.
It is
And
a job.
the guy is available. So
I
mean, what? Do your thing, Sebastian. Do your thing.
ask JetBrains to hire him. Is that what you're saying?
Do your thing, Sebastian. I don't. You don't need to say anything. Just do your thing.
It's fall in New York City now. I'm thoroughly enjoying taking the time off and kind of loosely thinking to take the rest of the year. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
sounds
it's
more
good
than
to-
reasonable.
yeah,
Also-
get to chill, enjoy the weather, hang out with this one.
Yeah. For clarity, I do not have power to have anyone hired, not even in my team. So there's that.
Womp, womp,
Let
womp,
alone in other
womp.
companies.
Just say that it's an AI startup you want to acquire, and then
That's it. That's it.
Maybe if you found a company that's called Windsurf, they will hire you and then sell the company onto someone else.
I mean, the compiler plugin feels magic. Maybe you can just throw AI on that, and
Yeah,
looks good.
it's an
I mean, look
AI
at this.
compiler plugin.
It's yeah.
Because I've
Anyway.
used AI autocompletion to write part of it.
yeah. I will say that on that note, I have been exploring trying different things like Claude Code and stuff like that. It's been interesting testing those out on a project like this, where like it gets really into the weeds very quickly, and seeing where those tools fall over and where they do really well. So like some stuff, it's been really nice for like tedium kinds of things, where I'm just like, hey, like I need to add, like when I was working on the compat stuff, like I know every time I make one of these, I'm gonna make the same, 5 files over. And so it's like, hey, can you generate a script that like generates a template for this when I want to add a new one? And like that stuff, it's really nice and helpful. And then there's been other times where like, under the hood, there's some like real like graph theory happening. In the early days of Metro, there was not, and it worked, but it was slow. And then I was like, Jesse, can you help me figure out this issue? And he's like, I think you want to look up who Tarjan is. And I'm like, Jesse, I'm about to have a really nice weekend, and you're going to make me like work on this. And then I went and learned graph theory, and now it
He
works
essentially
really fast.
said, "Get good."
Basically, yeah. Because what happened was it really shipped. A friend of mine in the community, Gabriel Ittner, messaged me. He's like, "Good news. Our app finally compiles with it." I was like, "Great." And he's like, "But it took an hour," and
Ouch.
because it was running. There was an issue with it. And it was running in like O squared time. And yeah, so talked to Jesse, and he's like, "You need to look up who Tarjan is and do topological sort." And now it does that, and it works great. And that weekend was ruined, but
but we all gain the speed.
Yeah, but like
cost.
it's one of those things where like that stuff gets really like into the weeds, and sometimes I'll get a bug report from someone. Again, especially like the band lab people have been really, really helpful, and just like every time they find a bug report, they just like put up a PR with a reproducer test, and I can just work against
that's
that.
awesome.
And it's just like perfect. And like sometimes I'm just like, I'll be like at a wall, and I'm just like, all right, I just want this to like spitball and see if it comes up with anything, and it will go through, and I can see like the moment where like it doesn't know what to do anymore, because it will get like two thoughts in and it'd be like, oh wait, actually, and then do something completely different, and then it'll arrive at the end of that where it's like made a non-functional change or added a comment, and it's like, cool, can you try to run this and see if that changed anything? I'm like, you just added a comment.
I mean, I can definitely try. We burn through the forest for a comment. Yeah, sure. Let's do this. AI.
I've drained a small
happy.
lake to generate this comment. Yeah, it's been an interesting venture trying to like see if that can actually be helpful, and I found generally that for any problem that's not just like, hey, this is boilerplate that I need you to generate, it's not been a good use of time. But yeah,
I mean, this is very niche. It's like the stuff that we were doing, Sebastiano, very crafty UI stuff. There's no chance that
it is.
Can do that.
Yeah, it's very fun. Like I see the same thing working on Jewel in the IntelliJ platform. It's like sometimes it has a clue. Other times it's just like, no. Don't worry, I'll take care of this.
But the hallucinations are interesting, because I'm working on the Compose documentation lately, and we are doing some comparison with views. So like, this is how we do it. Views do it with Compose, and it comes up with things, right? And with modifiers that they make sense, but you are like, something is tingling, like,
but they don't exist.
I don't know, right? So, and then you actually check, and the modifier is not there. I was like, the idea would be nice, you bastard, but the modifier does not exist. So because they are meant to please.
I think it's also
they will try.
Like I've seen it come up with modifiers that you're like, oh yeah, that would be nice. And then you stop to think for a second how modifiers work. It's like, no, that would never be possible with modifiers. You need like a layout node to do that. And then it's like, aha.
So I totally understand. It's well, I mean, as everything is a tool. But this is very crafty, as you said. This is very, it's a small niche. So
my favorite with those tools is like they all have their own like quirks as well. Like Claude will do the like, you're absolutely right, and
so many wasted tokens.
But my favorite was before I left Slack, they were they were integrating some tools like this, and they were trying to find higher value uses of them. And of course everyone is always like, generate tests for me, and there was multiple times where I realized like the same thing kept happening, where I'm like, okay, this is definitely like a thing here, where I'd be like, okay, like write something that does this, and then write a test for it, and then it would write some stuff, and then it would go and generate like a header for a test, and then it would be like the test would go here, and I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing it. It's like it doesn't want to write the tests, and I'm like, relatable, but.
But that's why I'm paying. That's why I'm paying.
Yeah. And the funniest or the best part of those is it will do it's very hesitant to, for whatever reason, change visibility of like main code. And so it will try to be testing something, and then it will see like you have some utility function that does this, and it wants that logic. And rather than just make that internal and reuse it in the test, it will just copy the whole thing in and drop it in. And I'm like, don't do that.
It's funny. I've seen the thing the other way around, where it just like goes the other side of the project, like, ha ha, that thing. I've seen that thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm gonna make it public. Now it's in your API. Fuck you.
Now everybody can enjoy this, Sebastiano. Yeah, you share. Sharing is caring.
Yeah, and maybe it's called nipple
trying to
the
give people
dribble
what
or
they want.
something. It's like, why?
Yeah, make people what they want. Yeah. Anyway, this was good. Any
Yes.
final questions, Sebastiano?
See you in London.
Fair enough.
See you in London.
Nice.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I'm
I hope
looking
you have
forward to
good
that.
coffee, Rex. I have a red eye. All the flights out of New York to London
Yeah.
leave after 9 p.m.
Why?
Okay.
It's
I
like
don't
a
know.
5 hours flight.
I know. So I'm gonna like fly and then land at. I think my flight's like 11 p.m. and then lands at like 11 a.m. the next day.
Okay.
Sounds fun.
Gonna try to sleep. I'm gonna be at the speakers happy hour, just like passed out on a couch somewhere.
Well, we
Yeah,
can bring you
yes.
coffee.
Yeah, perfect. Actually that was one of my favorite things of the Joy-Con Italy experience. Like you and other locals taking us around to stuff and being at a restaurant, and at like 12:30 in the morning, the waiter coming around is like, cafe. I'm like, are you insane?
Well,
I don't, but there are people that do. Yes.
I'm like, I'm a night owl and I'm panicking at this. Like, this is.
Yeah. Yeah. See you in Turin.
I gotta go back to Italy at some point. I've only been to Turin, so.
Good opportunity to explore. Anyway, folks, well, Zach, thank you again. This was super useful. It is giving me ideas that I hope I will have time to get to maybe in a month or so after the conference crazy is done.
Yeah.
That's currently the problem. But yeah, I'm super excited to try this out, and great job. It looks awesome. And again, with the integration in 25.3, it's even more useful. I can imagine like all of this stuff would still work without the 25.3 stuff, without the inline explanations and clarifications, but it looks so much nicer with them. It makes a big difference.
Yeah,
So-
I really like what they're doing with some of this stuff. In particular, a lot of this improved inline IDE support is coming out of JetBrains' work on data frame.
Mm-hmm.
They're in particular because they want all these, inline recompiling things in real time, like the sort of like very responsive UI. So that's what's been driving a lot of this work, and it's been really cool to see what they're doing.
And now I need to wait for 25.3 to support the KMP plugin, or the other way around. And then I can have this.
Anything you say.
Sorry? Did I break at some point?
Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can't do anything anymore. What? I mean, but I think we can hear him.
Yeah, we can.
Huh? No. No.
Okay, and with this,
Oh man. What?
we will see you second half of November. I forget the date, but it's written in a second on screen. we'll be here with Jake Wharton talking about testing stuff. So see you in a month and a bit. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.